You know what? You just gave me a cheat code. Shoot. Don't get
Nice,
chopped
guy.
off? Yeah. you gotta put all this in, no matter what I say.
When you look into my eyes, you understand what I'm saying. Let me say it to you slowly, and it may sound scandalous. I don't think that you can handle this.
All right, let's move on to Survivor. Last week was a pretty interesting week. Again, most of the favorites won. Most owned favorites included Buffalo, who beat New Orleans in a tighter game than I think most expected. But Buffalo was 25.1% owned. You had Detroit versus Cleveland. Detroit on the road won pretty easily, 21.8% owned. And then you had Houston against Tennessee. Houston was at home. Houston was 17.6% owned. And the owners of that Houston team must feel pretty good that they made it through with the Texans. There were a couple of loser teams, the biggest being the Los Angeles Chargers, who lost to the Giants. They were 8.8% owned. And then San Francisco at home lost to Jacksonville. They were 1.3% owned. But there's one more team to mention. This one is probably the most interesting because most people were probably running to their rule book to see if it counted or not. Green Bay was 4.4% owned, and they tied with Dallas. In some Survivor pools, you are probably out of it. If you happen to be in the DraftKings one, you are still surviving because you're only eliminated if your team loses. Now, overall, we've been talking about how much the favorites have been able to win, but I would like to point out that in my, I'm in several pools, but in the two pools I talk about as far as the podcast, one of them is still 44% full, and the other is 67% full. The 67% full is slightly higher entry, and I think people were being more cautious there. The cautiousness has been paying off so far. But will this change in week 5? Possibly, because this may be the toughest week that we have so far. First of all, we have the first buys. Atlanta, Chicago, Green Bay, Pittsburgh are all not playing this week. You can't pick one of them. All right, Mike Steph, I'm going to go through some of the biggest spreads of the week. You tell me if you like any of these or if you want to go off the board. We have San Francisco going to Los Angeles to play the Rams. That's the Thursday night one. We already previewed it a little bit, but the Rams are 5.5-point favorites. Denver going to Philly. Philly is 4.5-point favorite. Las Vegas is heading to Indianapolis to face the Colts. The Colts are 6.5-point favorites. Tennessee is heading to Arizona. Arizona is 8.5-point favorites. Detroit is going to be on the road going to Cincinnati. Detroit is 9.5-point favorites. And then on Sunday night, New England is heading to Buffalo. Buffalo is the 7.5-point favorite. Mike Steph, do you like any of these games or are you going off the board?
I'll stay on the board. This is really distressing for me because I really don't like staying on the board. But I think, especially after the last performance, I would go with the Lions because the Bengals. I really had more faith in Jake Browning than I guess it seemed like he deserved. Just from that little bit of success he had, not last season before last. I thought he was going to really, be able to at least man the ship for a little bit, but they can't score. Which, I mean, with those two receivers, you would think they would at least be able to put up some numbers. But if they can't score and the defense is already trash, and the Lions have proved it seemed like that first week was just an anomaly. Yeah, I would have to go with the Lions over the Bengals if you haven't chosen the Lions already. One other one, I guess, since this is hidden gems, I feel like I really do need to give a hidden gem, and I know they're gonna burn me, but I will go with the Panthers over the Dolphins. Part of it is because I'm bitter from last night, but also I just, for some reason, the Dolphins still aren't that good. They just beat a trash team in the Jets. And some would say, well, the Panthers aren't that good. Well, at least the Panthers got a win before the Dolphins did, and they're at home. So, and it's a short week for the Dolphins. So it's a 1.5 point spread. It's really a pick 'em. So if there was any time you could pick the Panthers, this might be a time to sneak them through. Because, especially now that Tyreek Hill is gone for the season, it might be an opportune time. So my official pick would be Detroit. My hidden gem pick would be the Panthers over the Dolphins.
All right. Interesting commentary there. I am with you on Detroit. They're the biggest spread of the week. The Lions look very solid there. The next biggest spread is Arizona at home versus Tennessee. This is more of an indictment on Tennessee than it is actually loving Arizona. But Tennessee has probably looked like the worst team in the league. Arizona, sometimes disappointing, but they haven't looked that bad. But since you mentioned a tight game, I will say that I think there's two games on here that I'm at least going to look at. One, I'm on the opposite side of you, that Miami-Carolina game. I think the Dolphins are just a better team. And even without Tyreek Hill, I think they should have enough to beat Carolina. But I might have used them last week. The other game I'm looking at, and I probably won't touch this in Survivor, but I am looking at it strongly, is the Giants going to New Orleans to face the Saints. The spread there is already flipped. The Saints are now 1.5 point favorites. The line started out with the Giants as the favorite, but that was before we knew that Malik Neighbors was out for the season. Granted, I just said with Miami, I'm not worried about Tyreek Hill, but with the Giants, I am very worried without Neighbors. As good as Jackson Dart looked last week, well, actually, to me, I don't think he looked very good. I think he caught the Chargers off guard because he was a runner, and I think they weren't really prepared for what he was doing. It was impressive that they got the win, but I wasn't really impressed. Like, I think that Jackson Dart's going to set this team on fire, especially now that he's lost his number one receiver. Meanwhile, the Saints have been steadily not good, not even decent, but they've been steadily annoying to pretty good teams. I feel like at home they might be able to squeeze out a victory versus the Giants. Probably won't play the Survivor, but I may bet on the Saints. One final note as far as Survivor goes, I've gotten a couple questions from listeners about how I am not talking about future value of picks. Every week, there are teams that are 20+% owned. And that's because everybody's looking at the same exact formula. I want my teams to vary a little bit. I'm playing in pretty big pools. I would like some of these owners to get the boot. I need some of these favorites to lose eventually, and hopefully I won't be on them that week. Basically, I'm diversifying my portfolio. DFS fans, daily fantasy fans will know it well. When you pick that one player that's a very low owned, and you hope that he pops, which will help your whole team jump ahead of other owners. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm trying to find the needle in the haystack because, quite frankly, if everybody's right about the formula and the strength of schedule, thinking of it ahead of time and going exactly how that formula works, you're going to have hundreds of people splitting pools. And I'm trying to get my milli.
This is a 19 Media Group presentation.
There's a method to his madness. There's a formula that's going in the head, like the dude from The Hangover, when he's trying to come up with the algorithm and everything. It's a formula. In other words, don't hate the player, hate the game. Exactly. Right there. Yeah. Listen, what he said.
Thank you, bro.
All right. You're welcome. Listen.
This is all lottery picks anyway. You're just trying to get the odds a little bit better towards your favor.
You said diversify my portfolio. Okay, go ahead. Talk your shit, brother. I will add this. For point spread purposes only, I would be willing to put some coin on the Raiders covering +7. Right. Well, the spread that I have is Raiders Colts. Colts are favored by 7 at home. Last time the Raiders went east, it didn't end well, but they can't be as bad as they've been playing. I just don't believe that. I know it's the first year of the regime of Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly and everything, and I'm really not pro Geno Smith, but call spade a spade. Geno Smith is still a capable quarterback. The Colts are coming off of their first loss, and I'm not saying the Colts will win, but 7 points. I think the Raiders can at least stay in it. So, spread purposes, I would go Raiders +7.
Yeah, I actually am with you on what you're cooking there because, as you noticed, I did not mention the Colts when I was talking about my possible picks. I don't know that game at all. The Raiders lost on the last second. I think their field goal was blocked. Otherwise, they'd have won last week. I'm still not a complete believer in Daniel Jones, even though he's been amazing. I think that facade is going to crumble as we go on deeper into the season.